Hi. So for my review of the 2010s, we now reach the late 2010s, the last 3 years of the decade, and I've got up to the year 2017. So I'm going to go through, as usual, some of the main people and events of that year. Very turbulent year here in the UK. From a personal point of view, I'll remember 2017 as the year that not one but two of my grandparents passed away. Both my maternal and paternal grandmothers passed away that year. And actually, it's also the year Roger Moore passed away, the actor Roger Moore of James Bond fame. I'm watching a James Bond film right now, For Your Eyes Only, so that just reminded me of it. Okay, so without further ado, I'm just going to go through some of these events, and like I say, this is intended to be sort of some of the main things, not absolutely comprehensive. Starting off the year in January was, of course, the inauguration of Donald Trump as 45th President of the United States. And as with everything to do with Donald Trump, it became a kind of ego issue when he kind of tweeted after the event that his inauguration had more people than Obama's, which was certainly a contentious claim. But on the very day that he was inaugurated, there were protests in Washington, D.C. and in New York City. So Trump was sworn in as 45th president, with Mike Pence as his vice president. Um, Very eventful year with Trump in the news, of course. A lot of things connected with Donald Trump that year. One of the first things he done was a controversial travel ban, which some have described as the Muslim travel ban. It's not quite accurate. Rather, it was a ban of people from Islamic majority countries. Um, and that generated considerable controversy and protests. Then the Russia investigation took place after Trump sacked FBI Director James Comey. Robert Mueller was appointed as special counsel to investigate claims that Russia had meddled in the 2016 American election. Also in 2017, Donald Trump pulled out of the Paris Climate Agreement, leading to much criticism. So an eventful year for Donald Trump. In the war in Afghanistan, he ordered the Moab strike in Afghanistan and Nangarhar airstrike. This was the largest use of a conventional weapon ever by the United States, that is a non-nuclear weapon. It was reported that 96 Taliban fighters were killed, but as with always with these things, there's some degree of uncertainty around that. It was a strike that was backed by the Afghan government at the time. Ashraf Ghani, although condemned by former leader Hamid Karzai. So the war in Afghanistan raged on. On New Year's Day, there was a terrible terrorist attack in Istanbul, 39 people killed, and the gunman was apparently dressed as Santa Claus. So this was just young people out having a good time, 39 people killed. Um, in Europe, also an eventful year. Three big European countries saw general elections in that year in France. Emmanuel Macron defeated Marine Le Pen, and there was a lot of discussion over would it be a backlash against the rise of populism in Europe, and it would seem to be the case when the centrist Macron, critics would say the globalist Macron, assumed the Elysee Palace, defeating his rival Marie Le Pen. Um, and he became the youngest French president, certainly of modern times, at the age of just 39, I believe, at the time. Um, Also in Germany, there was a federal election. Angela Merkel retained power, but her CDU-CSU uh, formed a grand coalition with the SPD under Martin Schulz at the time. And in Britain, of course, we had a general election. Um, and this was the first post-Brexit election. In that election, Theresa May, who was the new Prime Minister at that point, retains Tory power, but with a greatly reduced majority. And this led to significant controversy from Conservative backbenchers as to why the election was necessary. On the other hand, they did regain in Scotland. So it was supposed to be a sort of test for the weather as it was at that time for Brexit. But didn't quite achieve that. It just led to further division and uncertainty across the board. 2017, we began to see claims of anti-Semitism in the Labour Party really start to surface. They'd been there before, but they really started to surface that year. Um, in 2017, Theresa May triggered Article 50, which of course was Article 50 of the Lisbon Treaty, which began the withdrawal process from the European Union, which in theory should be completed in 12 days. But we'll see what happens. So an eventful year for European elections. Keeping to the UK, like I said, we had a very eventful, dramatic year. 2017 saw a lot of large-scale disasters and tragedies and atrocities. Of course, the Grenfell Tower blaze. Early in the year, actually, there'd been a similar fire in Tehran complex where a number of firefighters had been killed along with civilians. In London, of course, the Grenfell blaze was horrendous. The worst fire in Britain since the Piper Alpha fire of 1988, and the worst fire in London post-war. 72 people were killed. Initial reports said it was a lot higher, but nevertheless a major disaster. It had a real social impact. Theresa May was jeered as she arrived at the scene. There was talk from the Labour Party of social murder, and it really was a very, very raw event in terms of the social implications that it had. Also, 2017, of course, was the year where we were beset by a series of Islamist terrorist attacks and one far right terrorist attack, killing, I believe, over 30 people. So 22 at Manchester, 8 in London, 6 in London earlier in Westminster, and 1 in the Finsbury Park mosque attack. So 2017 was a year that will be remembered in the UK as a year of terrorism, unfortunately. Very dramatic year in that sense. And of course led to robust debate about the threat from pan-Islamism and its far-right counterparts. Um, in 2017, the city of Mosul in northern Iraq was declared liberated after a very costly battle there that had cost around 20,000 lives. Um, 2017 saw the centenary of the Battle of Passchendaele, the World War I Battle of Passchendaele, which was one of the deadliest battles on the Western Front. And I should say, actually, throughout the decade, there were a number of high-profile World War I commemorations. In the previous year, 2016, there had been many commemorations for the Battle of the Somme, and in 2015 for the Battle of Gallipoli. So 2017 saw the centenary of the Battle of Passchendaele, as well as the Battle of Cambrai and the Battle of Vimy Ridge, among other centenary commemorations around World War One. Okay, Hurricane Maria struck the Caribbean, particularly impacted Puerto Rico. There was significant controversy over the reports coming from the island, with initial reports saying that just 60 people had died. That was later revised significantly upwards to 3,059, which actually made it significantly deadlier than Hurricane Katrina, and actually the worst Atlantic hurricane since Hurricane Mitch back in 1998. So Hurricane Maria really had a devastating impact on Puerto Rico. Another big natural disaster in the year 2017 was a massive mudslide that hit Sierra Leone. 1,141 people died in that disaster. In South Korea, the embattled President Park Geun-hye, the first female president of the country, left office, and then her impeachment was upheld, and she was sentenced to imprisonment, of which she is currently serving her sentence for corruption and improper use of power and so on. In Venezuela, the humanitarian crisis really hit fever pitch in that country. Violence broke out. There were some awful scenes. Over 100 people were killed in political violence that year, surpassing that of 2014. And this is the year that we really started to see just how awful the situation in Venezuela was, with shopping centre aisles being emptied, malnutrition rising. It really was a humanitarian crisis which hasn't left the country. Um, Another big event, I should say, in the wake of Trump's inauguration was the Women's March. At that point, the largest of its kind that ever have taken place, massive march in the United States. and also in around the world. This was followed in 2018 and 2019, but the 2017 march really was significant. And also 2017 was the year of Me Too, where particularly the Hollywood establishment was really exposed for the sexual harassment allegations that had taken place there, the cover-ups, the alleged cover-ups, and of course Harvey Weinstein became the centre of that. So 2017 is really the start of the whole Me Too phenomenon. At the Academy Awards in 2017, this was for the films of 2016, of course, Moonlight won Best Picture after a famous mix-up, one of the most embarrassing moments in Oscar history, one of the most memorable moments in Oscar history, when Warren Beatty erroneously read out the result as La La Land winning Best Picture when it was actually Moonlight that won. Damien Chazelle won Best Director, and he was one of the youngest directors to ever win in that category. I think he may have been the youngest, actually. Casey Affleck won Best Actor for Manchester by the Sea, and Emma Stone for her role in La La Land won Best Actress. The Person of the Year, well, technically the People of the Year, were the International Confederation for Nuclear Disarmament, and I'll get the exact title if I could just get this up. Yeah, the Nobel Peace Prize in 2017 went to the International Campaign to Abolish Nuclear Weapons. In literature, the Nobel laureate of 2017 was Kazuo Ishiguro. 2017 was named as the UN Year of the International Year of Sustainable Tourism for Development by the UN General Assembly. Other events of the year 2017. In the United States, the Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville ended in scenes of violence, and one young woman was killed, leading to debate over the rise of the far right in the United States in the wake of Trump's election victory, as well as ongoing racial tensions in that country. Qatar saw a diplomatic crisis when other Arab states refused its shipping permission to dock. In Russia, on September the 1st, my birthday, Putin expelled 755 diplomats in response to United States sanctions, showing the ongoing tensions between East and West. In August of 2017, and this is still ongoing, a military operation targeting Rohingya Muslims in Myanmar seems a textbook example of ethnic cleansing, according to UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. This was also when, not for the first time, but certainly when it really became a question mark over the moral status of Aung San Suu Kyi, who had previously been greatly admired as a moral leader, a human rights figure, her reputation massively damaged by the ongoing events in Burma and around the Rohingya people. Two other big hurricanes, I mentioned Hurricane Maria, also in 2017, Hurricane Harvey and Hurricane Irma has caused considerable damage and loss of life. But Hurricane Maria really was unparalleled for some time. In Syrian civil war, Raqqa was declared fully liberated from the Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant. In China, at the 19th National Congress of the Communist Party, Xi Jinping assumed his second term as General Secretary, China's paramount leader, and the political theory Xi Jinping fought was written into the party's constitution. This really demonstrated the growing power of Xi Jinping as an individual. In Spain and Catalonia, depending on what way you look at it, but within Spain, de facto, Catalonia unilaterally declared independence based on a previous referendum. This led to a constitutional crisis in Spain and great standoffs between those who were pro the union with Spain and those against, and drew a lot of analogies with the Scottish situation here in the UK. The United States announced its decision to withdraw from UNESCO and is immediately followed by Israel. In the United States, the worst ever mass shooting took place in modern times. This is outside the early era. Took place in Las Vegas when Stephen Paddock opened fire on a crowd at a concert, killing some 58 people and wounding some 851 in the bloodiest single day in the United States since 9/11, and the worst mass shooting in modern times, surpassing the Orlando nightclub shooting of the previous year. And once again, this led to a robust debate around the gun issue in America. and footage of the shooting went viral on the internet, showing the sort of spread of internet news in this day and age. Montenegro joined NATO as the 29th member state. In Pakistan, a terrible disaster took place when an oil tanker crashed in the city of Bahawalpur, and local people, many of them desperately poor, went to collect fuel, and unfortunately someone lit a cigarette and a massive explosion took place and 219 people were killed. Also in Pakistan that year, a young student was lynched in the city of Mardan at the university complex over an alleged blasphemy online, which wasn't even proven. And this sickened a lot of people around the world and led to debate about Pakistan's robust blasphemy laws. And once again reminded us of what a deeply religious society Pakistan can be. I mentioned the Me Too phenomenon. Time named the People of the Year as the Silence Breakers, which were collectively those people, predominantly women, but some men too, who had spoken out as silence breakers. And among them were the actress Alyssa Milano, journalist Megyn Kelly, and actor Terry Crews. Um, North Korea tested a ballistic missile in the Sea of Japan, provoking worldwide condemnation and once again reminding us of the tensions on the Korean Peninsula. Also that year, Kim Jong Nam, um, of the family of the ruling leader, was assassinated in Kuala Lumpur, and two young women from Vietnam were arrested on suspicion of that. It still hasn't been entirely cleared what exactly happened. In science, the Cassini-Huygens space probe ended. This was a long-standing probe of the planet Saturn, and was the first spacecraft to fully analyze the planet in detail. So that was a big development in science. And I'll just have a quick scan through some other events of the year 2017. Like I say, it's impossible to include absolutely everything, but I'll try and be as rounded as possible. Um, so an annual solar eclipse was visible from the Pacific, Chile, Argentina, Atlantic, and Africa. It was the 29th eclipse of the 140th Saros cycle. If you're into astronomy, the United Nations warned that the world was facing its largest humanitarian crisis since World War II, with up to 20 million people at risk of starvation in Yemen, Somalia, South Sudan, and Nigeria. Um, SpaceX conducts the world's first reflight of an orbital class rocket. Um, Let me see, I'm just trying to include as much as possible here. In Germany, the long-standing Chancellor Helmut Kohl passed away. In Yemen, the former dictator Ali Abdullah Saleh was killed in the ongoing Yemeni civil war by Houthi rebels. The WannaCry ransomware attack affected millions of computers around the world. This was a large-scale ransomware cyber attack, which went on to affect 150 countries, so one of the largest of its kind. The Manchester bombing, of course, took place at the Ariana Grande concert in Manchester, England. Um, and I'm just trying to look at some other issues. The 2017 World Expo was held in Astana in Kazakhstan. The American student Otto Warmbier returns home in a coma after spending 17 months in North Korea, and sadly he died shortly afterwards. Iran's Revolutionary Guards Corps fired 6 surface-to-surface mid-range ballistic missiles from domestic bases targeting ISIL forces in Syria in response to the terrorist attacks in Tehran earlier that month. The Grand Mosque of Al Nuri in Mosul, Iraq, is destroyed by Islamic State, showing the impact of ancient monuments from terrorism around the world. Russia and China urged North Korea to halt its missile and nuclear programs after it successfully test-fired its first intercontinental ballistic missile. The Treaty on the Prohibition of Nuclear Weapons is voted for by 122 states. The UN Security Council unanimously approved fresh sanctions to North Korea. Mauritania held a constitutional referendum for approval of proposed amendments to the constitution. The first observation of a collision of two neutron stars is hailed as a breakthrough in multi-messenger astronomy when both gravitational and electromagnetic waves from the event are detected. Finland suffered its first significant terrorist attack when two people were killed by an Islamist in the city of Turku. A total solar eclipse nicknamed the Great American Eclipse is visible within and across the entire contiguous United States, passing from the Pacific to the Atlantic. And just skipping down, the International Olympic Committee awards Paris and Los Angeles the right to host the 2024 and 2028 Summer Olympic Games, and this was held, I believe, in Lima, Peru. A big earthquake took place in Mexico on the 32nd anniversary of the 1985 earthquake, killing some 350 people in this case. Somalia, which had long been racked by civil war and anarchy, suffered its worst ever terrorist attack, and one of the worst actually in recorded history. Some 512 people killed in a massive blast in a truck bombing in Mogadishu. And a new species of orangutan was identified in Indonesia, becoming the third known species of orangutan, as well as the first great ape to be described for almost a century. Then we'll just get into some other things of that year. A mass shooting also took place in Sutherland Springs, Texas, killing some 26 people. A big earthquake took place on the Iran-Iraq border, leaving some 530 dead and 70,000 homeless. And 2017 also saw the Zimbabwe political crisis and the fall from power after 3 decades in power of Robert Mugabe, who was placed under house arrest, and the world was transfixed on the situation in Harare. And the good thing about this unrest was it was largely bloodless. And of course, Mugabe was succeeded by Mnangagwa, who had been his former deputy. In Egypt, a mosque attack took place in Sinai, killing some 305 people, which was the worst ever terrorist attack in Egypt. The International Criminal Court found Ratko Mladic guilty of genocide committed in Srebrenica during the Bosnian War, and he was sentenced to life in prison. Russia is banned from the 2018 Winter Olympics in Pyeongchang by the International Olympic Committee following an investigation into state-sponsored doping. The United States officially recognized Jerusalem as Israel's capital. The Walt Disney Company, announced that it will acquire most of 21st Century Fox, including the 20th Century Fox film studio, for $66 billion. And finally, Guatemala on Christmas Eve followed in the footsteps of the United States and announced that they were moving their Israeli embassy to Jerusalem, followed by Honduras and Panama 2 days later. That was the year 2017. I've tried to include a lot of information there. There will, of course, be other information. I should say in sports, actually, the heavyweight fight of the decade took place between Britain's Anthony Joshua and Vladimir Klitschko, the great Vladimir Klitschko of Ukraine, in London's Wembley. Some 90,000 people were in attendance. Also in the world of martial arts that year, Floyd Mayweather fought Conor McGregor in what was billed as the fight of the century. Of course, if you recall, 2 years earlier, Mayweather-Pacquiao had also been billed that way, but Mayweather was victorious. This was, of course, a crossover between boxing and MMA. So, that was the year 2017. Feel free to add any information as usual, and I will continue on with the year 2018 in due course.